Every day is a new lesson, a new revelation. Even if you are attempting to build a castle just in the air, you have broken ground and you prepare to pour the foundation. But you see, there needs to be things that have to be cleaned up. I believe that part is done. Now I'm ready to build these foundational columns. If someone were to ask you, do you believe in God? Are you religious? Of course, nobody would ask you. These kind of questions, they are almost considered like an affront. But if I were asked, I'd say yes to the first one. And to the second, I'd probably respond with a question. Does Marian devotion count for being religious? Religion, it does a great service to society, to humanity, to the individual. It's like this body of water where you can come and pour in all of your trepidations that you experience through this journey that we call life, and also draw from it hope. Do you remember Saint Bernard? From that prayer to the Virgin Mary, he has written that Mary is like the aqueduct that takes water from a single source, God, and distributes it among a multiplicity of recipients. So this reservoir of inexhaustible love and hope is filled by the Virgin Mary. I've read that Mary's earliest name is Hodegetria, she who leads the way. Another name is Theotokos, the bearer of God. The name I like the most is Regina Caeli, Queen of the Heavens. There's a line in that Saint Bernard prayer which goes, "For us up here in heaven, you are the noonday torch of charity. And down there among the mortals, you are the living fountain of hope." The thing about devotion to Mary, I think, is that you're not held to one book, scripture. I think it gives you the freedom to say, I believe in God, but I don't commit myself, assign myself to any religion in particular. You are free. Free from the allegation of things like heresy. So where would you come up with the notion of good and evil, if you'd asked? Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy provides a sufficient guide in this area. What's great about this poem is that it can never be considered as religious text. The author seemed to have made sure that it won't happen by giving it a title, a comedy. The irony of sin and punishment in itself is the comedy. Evil is stupid because look where you end up. He says, salvation or damnation is a choice that I leave up to you. The beauty of this epic poem is that you don't have to agree with everything that is in there. This poem was born out of a midlife crisis that Dante was experiencing, a true midlife crisis, at the midpoint in his life. In the year 1300, Dante was one of the priors of his city, his home city, Florence. And before that, he had held many positions of power in the government. The prior is like a Supreme Court judge, so he was one of the 9 magistrates. You could say the pinnacle of his career. And in January of 1302, it's as if he falls from the top of fortune's wheel, right to the bottom. This happened when Dante was on a trip out of town. On his return, he finds out to his surprise that there's been a change in the political power structure. The opposing faction has gained control, and consequently, Dante is indicted on charges of corruption, found guilty, sentenced, sent into exile, never to return. Can you imagine that? You'd never be able to see your friends and family and explain to them, just in case they had any questions. Scholars have ruminated on his condition, and so can we. How he must have felt humiliated, as if like a plaything of fortune. This kind of stuff happens even these days. People who have held great positions of power. For some reason, they get fired, they lose their position, and find it difficult to handle it. I guess one of the ways to overcome these kind of things is to pour it into art and express yourself. Exhale. I think it's quite safe to say that Dante was innocent. He was wrongly charged. Well, for one, because he was a magistrate, and two, look at what he wrote. Could you produce something like the Divine Comedy without a pure heart? Scholars say, in terms of time scale, it was approximately around 1307 when he had begun writing the Divine Comedy and continued with it till his death in 1321. Have you ever felt like you're not sure whether you're awake or still dreaming? It is the first scene in the Divine Comedy. He awakes in this jungle, a dark wood. His blood is frozen, curdled with fright. He's hesitant to take a step in any direction, for fear that it could be his last. He's woken up in hell, the Inferno. He doesn't realize it until a poet who lived 1300 years before Dante, Virgil, shows up and offers to guide him through this terrain. Everything seems to suggest that if Virgil didn't come to Dante's rescue, he wouldn't have made it. Of course, Dante is the author of the poem, so it's no accident that Virgil shows up. What is curious is this poem is based on Christian theology, and Virgil, who comes to offer this help, is a pagan. He's not baptized, which means, based on the laws, the architecture of this poem, even though Virgil has done this great service to Dante, Dante is not able to give him a free pass through this afterlife so that he can re-emerge in a body, rebirth. This is just one example of how you can disagree. It would be acceptable as a reader to express reservation, to say, why couldn't you make an exception in the case of Virgil, considering what he's done for you? I think it's a question to ourselves too. What would you do in this situation? Most of us would say, we'll break the rules, we'll make an exception, I think. Then there is the case of Francesca, our heroine. I misspoke earlier, said she lived in the 11th century, when actually it was the 13th. She appears in the Divine Comedy, in the circle of the lustful. Of course, it's way too early to get there, but we will, slowly, eventually. I'll play a song from Bob Dylan, performed as a cover by these two brothers, Josh and Joshua Turner. It's one of the many timeless classics. This one's called The Times They Are A-Changing.